Welcome to the Quantum Lens podcast. I'm your host, Oksana Hansen. This is a space where science meets soul, a heart-centered, conscientious podcast designed to nurture your spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. Through the wisdom of quantum biology, holistic healing, and a deep self-discovery, we'll explore what it truly means to live in alignment with nature, with energy, and with yourself. If you're ready to open your heart, expand your mind, you're in the right place. Hello, and today we have none other than Roudy Nassif, and he is the CEO and founder of VivaRays, which I love so much. Rudy, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
And I think you have a pretty unique story in your background into how you got into the circadian and quantum health stuff. So I'd love to just start with your story, whatever it is that you'd like to share with us today, and we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's like a moment in my life that I'd like to start from. It's like 1 a.m. in the morning, March 2017. I'm literally laying down in bed in our dark basement in Canada next to my former partner. And I'm like scrolling on my phone. The blue light is shining on my face. My eyes are hurting and burning. And I feel drained mentally, physically, and emotionally. Yet I'm wired. I literally can't stop scrolling. Now, suddenly a video popped up on my feed. I almost skipped it, but then I clicked. Artificial light is killing us. And I'm squeezing my brain, barely understanding what Dr. Jack Ruth is saying. But then I wake up the second day, and there's this one sentence that keeps echoing in my mind. You can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick. And I'm like, wow. I ask myself, could this be the reason for everything I've been going through? The lack of energy, the constant fatigue, the depression? Could this be it? And from this moment on, for 7 years so far, I've been studying the light problem extensively, and I even founded a company to solve it. And throughout those 7 years, I came to a realization, a very profound one, that the quality of our life is entirely dependent on the quality of the light that enter our eyes. And it continued to blows my mind every time I come back to the same realization. And before we go to the why and how, I'd like to share a little bit about what got me to that moment. So as a kid, I grew up in Lebanon, in the Middle East, and I was literally the definition of ADHD kid who can't focus. Or at least that's the definition that my teacher given me. And to be honest with you, Oksana, the classroom left me extremely drained. I hated being in the class. And it felt like a prison cell to me. And my only escape from that prison was becoming a troublemaker. I literally did crazy things. Like one time I threw a rotten apple on the board next to where my teacher is writing. I would do anything in the world so that they kick me out of the classroom. That was like my only fantasy, to be outside. And by the time I was 7 old, I was literally asked to leave 7 different schools. Now, in retrospect, it's almost funny, but I always wanted to escape the school and be outside. And today I know it's because of the light. Now, as I got older, I became a night owl, staying up late until 2, 3 a.m. in the morning and constantly waking up feeling tired, low on energy, and unmotivated all day long. Now, the funny part, I made it to engineering school. I think I loved math and physics a lot. But the thing is, here's the funny truth is oftentimes things look like amazing on the outside. I looked like a fit, young, successful engineer on the outside. But on the inside, I was literally drowning. I lost my health, had zero sense of purpose. And I was turning seriously into depressive suicidal at that moment. And no matter what I tried, martial arts, exercising, biomechanics, even climbing freezing mountains with the Iceman, Wim Hof, in shorts, minus 20 degrees. Nothing seemed to last. I would get those like little bursts of energy and inspiration, and they will fade away. And I literally tried every diet imaginable. I cut out on sugar and processed food, and that helped a little bit, but nothing radical. And then I became a vegan, and things became really worse. So I turned into a keto and a carnivore, and I started this ancestral diet. And I was taking the best adaptogens and supplements for sleep, brain health, mitochondrial health. But still, I felt the same. It's crazy, like, remembering all this period, it just drives me crazy because I got exposed to all this different confusing information, but I was never told the simple truth, how sunlight impacts us. So anyway, I decided to leave my career as an engineer. That was a very difficult decision, but glad I made that. And I decided to travel to Canada on a tourist visa to start a new beginning. Now, you may ask why Canada? Because as a Lebanese person, it's very difficult to travel. I applied to so many countries. All of them got refused. The only one that got accepted as a tourist was Canada. So I'm like, okay, let's go. And 3 months later, I'd already moved in with my former partner in her very dark basement, that same place where I watched the video about artificial light. Now, that was a very challenging period in my life, because my partner was very turned on. Like, she was working and studying. She was super busy all the time. But me, oh my God, I couldn't work because I was on a tourist visa. I literally barely spoke any English. So I couldn't understand anybody around me. And it was a massive cultural shock. And I found myself in this dark basement in the cold and dark winter of mopping around all day, doing nothing. And by the evening, I got into this destructive habit of smoking cannabis. So I'd be high and basking in artificial light at night. And I'd get those sudden bursts of energy, literally thinking to myself that I figured it out. I'd start researching psychology, health, different topics, excited, thinking that I'm going to change myself and the world around me. But the issue is that I'd wake up the second day with zero energy, no motivation, and I had already forgotten everything that I learned the night before. So a few months passed, and after my partner started to get really, really concerned because I was becoming really dysfunctional. I was going through an intense cultural shock, and the depression started increasing. So my partner, having heard about the video of artificial light is killing us, she was investigating, and she came up with a brilliant idea. Not so brilliant at the time. I was shocked with that idea at the time. She comes to me and she's like, Rudy, pack your stuff. We're going to volunteer at a farm in rural Quebec. And literally my face turns colorless. You could see like lines of worry on my front. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, like, going to a farm? Like, how is this going to help me? Now, here we are, driving in the car for 7 hours from Ontario to Quebec. The car is literally bouncing on this dirt road. The glow of the city is disappearing in the background. And we arrive at this farm. It was nighttime when we arrived. And there's literally no electricity and no artificial lights. Just open, pristine skies with twinkling stars. I've never seen something like that in my life. I was in awe. So we set up our tent, and the only source of light was coming from the fire flickering in front of us. Now, it's day 1, May 2017. I wake up feeling exhausted, literally. My body is resisting. I'm feeling so heavy, like a burden on my chest. I don't want to be outside. I don't want to see people. It's very tough. But then, by the 3rd day, something completely magical happened. I wake up with no alarm clock for the first time in my life. And I feel a surge of sustainable energy buzzing in my body. Literally, my body feels alive, completely rested. And I'm exhilarated with a sense of joy that I have never felt in my life. I look at my partner, I give her a big hug with a big smile on my face. This is different. Something is changing. I couldn't help but smile. And then with deep excitement, I opened the door of the tent. You should see the contrast between day 1 and day 3. I wish we have that on camera. But literally, I spring outside of the tent. My eyes are glowing. The world around me is literally glowing with the magical light of the dawn. And I'm like, wow, the birds are singing. The scent of the flower is mesmerizing. And literally, like, I'm getting those inputs where I'm seeing life through a new lens for the first time in my life. Like, I'm feeling that I am connected with all things. And suddenly, a sudden burst of like sense of purpose becomes alive in me. And the night owl in me, who stayed up late until 2, 3 a.m. every night, is now falling asleep shortly after the sunset, naturally. No more night owl. I did not have a night owl problem. I had a light problem. And you wouldn't believe what happened next. To this day, I get goosebumps when I share this. But one day I was like in the farming fields, crouched over the ground, weeding the crops. And the farmer walks over to me. He places his hand on my shoulder and he says to me, Rudy, there's something I really want to share with you. And I look at him, I'm like, what? He's like, I so appreciate the level of focus that you have. I've never seen anything like it. Oh my God. Like instant tears well up in my eyes and a deep moment of realization. I was like, wow, everything I thought to be wrong with me, my ADHD, my depression, my chronic fatigue, it wasn't about me. It was my light environment. I mean, isn't this fascinating? And you wouldn't believe what happened after that, Oksana. I was in disbelief, literally, because I never thought that I would lose that state. But I returned back to the city, and within a matter of few weeks, it all comes crashing back at me. The fog, the exhaustion, night owl tendencies, the dysfunctional behavior of scrolling and eating at night. And I realized, no, I'm no longer going back there. I need to go deeper. And I literally made a commitment to myself to study what happened. And I became like a mad scientist, with the farms becoming my laboratory. And for over 4 years, I kept traveling back between the city and the farm. And I would deliberately choose these wonderful spots up north, living with indigenous people, in a way that is in complete alignment with nature's light and dark cycles and with the seasons. And I was documenting every shift in my sleep, in my energy, in my mood, diving into the research, reading every book, every study that I could find on the science of light, so I could solve the light problem. So during this process, I learned about blue light blocking glasses, and I got really excited. I bought 3 clear blue light blocking glasses for myself, my former partner, and my sister. And of course, we wore them religiously, naively thinking to ourselves that we just cracked the code to solving the light problem. But of course, nothing, no magic, no change. And we could talk a little bit more about why is that, like why those glasses are complete marketing gimmick. But we kept trying all these different brands, and like yellow lenses, orange lenses, red lenses. And it wasn't until we tried a brand called DeWalt. It's a safety glasses that is extremely ugly, super clunky, super hideous. But somehow it worked. Like, you could see that, wow, like our sleep improved, we're waking up feeling refreshed. So in this moment, the engineer in me had a million questions in my head. I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow, like, why is it that 95% of the blue light blocking glasses companies that we tried did not work? And how come the DeWalt somehow was a lot more effective? And is there a room for improvement? So I decided to buy a spectrocalorimeter to measure what the lenses were doing. And what I learned was absolutely shocking. I saw that like 95% of those companies were blocking light in a very random way and extremely different than what they advertised. And I could also see why the DeWalt were a lot more effective. And I also saw like a massive room for improvement. So the universe works in a very magical way. That was like my only obsession at the time. So literally, I somehow meet an optical engineer on the farm who was coming to buy his groceries from the farm where I was working. And I engage in this beautiful, deep conversation with him because he asked me, "What are you doing here?" And like, "What are you doing in life?" And I start sharing with him about my transformation. And it literally blew his mind. And he's like, "I can help you. Like, I literally want to help you." So it was a long process of trial and error where he was working in his lab. He would send me the dyes to my garage and picture me literally in my garage, gloves on, a face mask, hunched over, manually tinting lenses from morning till night. And it was crazy, like so fun and crazy at the same time. And it was like a 9 months of trial and error, literally. And finally, after 9 months, the first pair of circadian glasses that actually worked. And I finally had a tool to protect my sleep and hormones when I go back to the city. And in this moment, I had zero intention to start a business, but I observed around me and I'm like, oh my God, all of my friends and all of my family, they have a light problem. So I decided to make 30 pairs in my garage and I start handing them the glasses. And I had shared with them 7 steps to harnessing the power of light, which we could share on this podcast. And it was absolutely fascinating because every time they began to heal very fast and to reverse their chronic issues after fixing their light problems. So, for example, my mom, she had been battling chronic insomnia for over 8 years. She could barely sleep 2 hours a night. She was losing her hair. She couldn't think clearly. And she lost her zest and motivation for life. Now, fast forward a few weeks after she started implementing the steps and blocking artificial light, she literally started sleeping 8 hours every single night. Now, best of all, she gained back her hair. She gained back her zest of life. She started her first business ever, and she was learning Spanish and English at the same time. Went from 0 to intermediate in a year. And at the age of 60, she was learning tennis, swimming, and exercising for 2 hours every single day. It was fascinating. And Oksana, the beautiful thing is, if my mom could do it, I believe that anybody in the world could do it, because my mom was born in Lebanon, and she had been around war for so many years. Even during the time when she was pregnant in me, she had to escape 12 times because of bombing. And it was an absolutely tragic and traumatic experience for her because she was also stuck in a location away from my dad. So she has been holding a lot of trauma in her body. And I hear so many people talking about trauma. But it was so fascinating how when my mom changed her light environment, how it facilitated the space and the resourcefulness inside of herself to look at this trauma and to give it love and to heal it and to allow herself to go beyond it and to realize the divine woman that she is, which we all are. So with all that being said, I start noticing that this is not only a personal transformation, it was healing the life of others. And this is what led me to start VivaRays with my sister Joy. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I had zero intention to start a business. Joy had to really convince me. But now 4 years in, I'm more convinced than any time before because I could see that all of us in this modern world, we have a light problem. And I feel a deep sense of purpose within myself to step in and to ignite this light revolution with one goal really is to educate as many human beings as possible about the power of light and to innovate really and create spaces and technologies that are aligned with Mother Nature and that allow us to thrive like we're meant to thrive.
Amen. There are so many pieces of your story that I think so many people will be able to relate to. And one of them particularly struck me was when you were talking about being in the classroom and how you just knew the light environment was affecting you. And I'll share a personal story. So I homeschool my children. I have 2 girls, they're 9 and 11. And the reason we started homeschooling was because my daughter, she's kind of intuitive. She's sensitive. My oldest daughter, she would come home from school. This was just in kindergarten, and she would go to sleep. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon and she would go to sleep and she wouldn't wake up till the next day. Something was giving her these migraines, these headaches. She's a competitive gymnast. She's super healthy. I mean, we do all the things. And like you, We eat right, local, grass-fed, in season, ancestrally. We exercise as a family. We're still battling all these issues with migraines and headaches and insomnia. I had insomnia for so long that I thought it was just the result of having children. Like it had become the new norm. Like I just thought that once you become a mother, you just don't sleep anymore. Like, and I think so many people can relate to this as you suffer from these symptoms for so long that they become your norm, and they're really not. It's really our light environment. When you fix that and you sleep through the night for the first time, you're like, whoa. Or all of a sudden you put your glasses on and 30 minutes later, your melatonin's kicked in, you're feeling sleepy, and you just don't even care about the TV or what's on your phone or whatever. You're like, it's time for bed, and it might only be 8:30 at night. And that's the way we're supposed to live. We're not supposed to be up at 1, 2, and 3 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely. And I so resonate with one, your daughter being an empath and being at school, it could be a very painful experience. Like, for instance, when I was at school as a kid, I could hear the noise coming from the light bulbs, and that was completely disruptive. And I would explain to my teacher that, like, I'm hearing this like noise and nobody could understand what I'm talking about, and they thought I'm crazy. But equally, when I go out to nature, I could like hear that silent rhythmic beat that brings instant inspiration, and I would start writing poetry and I would feel like this intense, beautiful energy. And every time they brought me back to the classroom and forced me back, I felt like a little baby being deprived from being around his mother. And my mother was Mother Nature. And I was like so craving to be in nature, and I could not explain what's going on because my environment could not understand, and they thought I'm a crazy kid. So I'm glad also that you are homeschooling now, because I'm imagining how much more nourishing and beautiful to experience homeschooling, where at least also kids are not all the time being taught to become parrots and to memorize and repeat, because I think that stultifies the genius within every kid that is awaiting the moment of like self-expression and expressing their own genius through art, through creation. And I think at school we do the complete opposite. We have kids sit down all the time and have them behave in a certain way that fits whatever the agenda of the school is, and we ask them to memorize and repeat. And the kids who could memorize better is considered intelligent and a genius, but the kid who could ask really good question, who's inspired by the arts, who could write poetry, is almost considered a dumb, like like is kicked out of the classroom. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. They're the odd ones out, right? And I think I can relate to your story. So I was born under communist rule in Russia. My family, we immigrated to the Americas in 1990. And I also never spoke the language. So I was very much just thrown into that environment and having to overcome all this adversity. So I had a very also traumatic childhood with like capital T trauma. And I think all these things like that make us, like kind of what we were talking about before we started this recording this podcast, is we might have experienced the same exact events, but we'll experience them differently because of our own backgrounds. And I think that's what's so beautiful about you sharing your story and being so vulnerable and sharing all those things. Is I think that so many people are going to be able to relate to it, and just knowing that, you know, you could be doing all the right things, but you might be missing a very critical piece, which is the light.
Absolutely, yes. And because like today, when we think about light, most people think of light as something superficial that makes vision possible. They think of it from the day we are born. We look at light as like, you know, these light bulbs in the house that we turn on to see things around us, and then we turn off to make the space dark. However, light is a lot more than this. It's the language spoken by every living thing on Earth, from the smallest bacteria to the largest mammals. This wave of light literally programs everything, and it has shaped life for billions of years, guiding the growth of the plants, the movement of the animals, and the rhythm of the day and the night. It literally guided our ancestors to know whether to be active, hunting and foraging, or to be back in the camp, sleeping and rejuvenating. And this language of light literally like whispers to us and speaks to us and controls every aspect of our biology. So light is not something that just allows us to see the beauty around us. Light is the most powerful form of information. And if you think about information and this information era, we hopefully know that oftentimes we protect our brains from the wrong information, because just like the information we allow into our minds can either trap us in fear or empower us. Light also is a double-edged sword. It can either elevate us or make us sick. And it's literally programming us at a cellular level, and more specifically, the mitochondria. I don't know how much you believe in evolutionary biology, but it has been said that 1.5 billion years ago, evolutionary biology says life began as a single cell organism. To me, it doesn't make any sense, because I do believe that life doesn't begin or ends. It's cyclic. So I look at it as a new life cycle began as a single-celled organism in the ocean thriving in darkness. It's been said that it wasn't until certain bacteria made their way up to the surface and began absorbing sunlight that this new life cycle took a massive leap forward. And one bacteria engulfed another, and this partnership led to the development of mitochondria. And those are the tiny little engines that are responsible for producing the energy that fuels everything we do: thinking, moving, creating, healing. Now, conventionally, in the books of biology, it's been said that mitochondria relies on food because it's breaking down that food into ATP, the molecule energy. But now we're coming to understand that it's beyond that. It's food itself is a form of light that is being stored in food, which our body break down into electrons and protons, tiny light particles that the mitochondria transfer in the electron transport chain to produce a cellular water that energizes our cell and to also metabolize that food. Now, in 2017, Dr. Douglas Wallace from the University of Washington, he won an award for his groundbreaking discovery. He said in his own words that 90% of modern chronic diseases like anxiety, depression, diabetes, cancer, you name it, are actually originating from the mitochondria losing their efficiency. And one big reason the mitochondria loses efficiency is because of lack of sunlight and lack of proper darkness. Now, this is not like anything we've heard before, but literally, Einstein's photoelectric effect show us how light excites electron and generate electricity. Now, what I'm about to say might seem coming out of a science fiction movie, but we all know, for instance, that plants photosynthesize via the photoelectric effect, and this is how solar panels work. But here's something shocking. It's how our body works as well on a cellular level. Literally, we convert light into electricity. And there's a Nobel Prize winner, his name is Albert Szent-Györgyi. He discovered vitamin A and he won that Nobel Prize. But he also spoke about how sunlight excites the electron in the electron transport chain of the mitochondria and generate the electricity that the mitochondria need to metabolize the food into energy. So I think we're now starting to scientifically realize that only 1/3 of the energy that we get come from food, and literally 2/3 comes from sunlight. So there's also a lot of research dating back to the 1970s. I believe there's two scientists, their name is Martinek and Berezin. They spoke about how different frequencies of light activate different enzymes that are related to speeding up digestion, energy production, and cellular repair. And they make those enzymes 500% more effective. Now, imagine becoming 5 times better at absorbing nutrients from every meal that you eat. And imagine becoming 5 times more effective at energy production. How will that impact your life? How would it impact everything that you care about, whether it's your relationship or your business or your finances, if you had 5 times the amount of the energy that you currently have? And anecdotally, when I was feeling unwell, I literally used to eat 7 to 8 times per day, never feeling satisfied, constantly feeling tired, spending thousands of dollars on supplements. Fast forward today, I feel stronger, younger, and more energized than ever before. And I only eat once or twice a day. And I cut down my supplementation to nothing. People don't believe me when I tell them that I literally take zero supplements. So it's absolutely fascinating how much light impacts us. I wanted to add one thing to that is specifically when we speak about the mitochondria, one thing that led to the industry of red and infrared light to blow up is the discovery that the key enzyme, cytochrome C oxidase, respond particularly well to red and infrared light. However, I want to invite everybody listening to be aware and awake to not be very short-sighted, because in science, we tend to be very short-sighted. We take different discoveries that are isolative discoveries. We isolate them from the whole, and we start, creating different conclusions that do not relate to the whole. Now, why is that? Because we have thousands and thousands of different enzymes in the body. And it's now very well known that every enzyme has a wavelength absorption characteristic, meaning that different enzymes respond to different frequencies of light across the full spectrum. And we need the full spectrum of sun to activate all these different enzymes, just like we need the full spectrum of vitamins and minerals in order to be the healthiest version of ourselves. And one little thing to add, I like to think of light as nutrition. And just like if we overtake any form of mineral or supplements, we literally end up intoxifying ourselves and we make ourselves sick. In the same way, chronically exposing ourselves to that narrow spike of blue light day and night is literally intoxifying our body and leading us to gain more weight, destroying our dopamine, our serotonin, all of these hormones that allow us to feel good, that allow us to pay attention and to have the motivation and the inspiration to go after what we really want in life. Literally, blue light, as it destroys our dopamine, it makes us more unable to think for ourselves, unable to sit up and pay attention. As a kid, I struggled with ADHD, but I didn't really have an ADHD problem. I had a light problem. And today, more than ever before, we have an epidemic of humans who can't think on their feet and who can't pay attention for more than 3 seconds. Now ask yourself, why is that? And what kind of light are you allowing into your eyes? Because let me repeat that the quality of your life is entirely dependent on the quality of light that enter your eyes.
It's funny is, so my daughter does musical theater and they're under these fluorescent lights. And I'm like, you have to wear your blue blockers. And she's like, Mom, these aren't cool. And I'm like, guess what? You're going to be on the forefront of this revolution because in a few years, all the kids are going to be wearing blue blockers and you're going to be the first one that did it. And it's just leading by example, but also educating them. And it's so cute to watch them explain to their friends, what are those? Those are cool. Why are you guys all wearing yellow blockers at breakfast or orange blockers at breakfast when we travel and stuff like that? And I'm like, thanks for the invitation. Let me tell you all about our light environment. And it's so funny because you just never know who, what, why. The goal is really to educate people on this. So I'd like to ask you a question about what you just said.
I see a lot of my friends who come and visit me here in Mexico. And as I start talking to them about essentially even not talking to them, like I invite them over for a walk first thing in the morning to get that sunrise, and then they will see me like continuously throughout the day going outside, sitting in the sun and tanning, eating my food outside, like getting that sunlight exposure periodically throughout the day, building my melanin, continuously tanning. And I do it in a very conscious and safe way. Now they get very confused and they're like, what are you doing? Like we already got our dose of light from my panel. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you talking about? And then I explained to them that like what you're getting from your panel is a drop in the ocean of what you're supposed to get from sunlight. Because yes, your panel is giving you a narrow spike in red light and infrared. And yes, there are some amazing studies showing how red light rejuvenate the skin and build up collagen, and how infrared light activate the C cytochrome oxidase and build up exclusive zone water. However, this is only a drop in the ocean of what you could actually access if you were to drop your panel and go outside and get natural sunlight. There's a time and place for panels. If you really had no access whatsoever to sunlight somehow, then you could supplement with that. And it's like you can't replace raw meat coming from regenerative farming with liver pills, for example, in your supplementation. There's
Right.
like there's literally like you can't compare this to that. You're just getting a fraction of the benefits that you would get if you were to eat that piece of steak coming from your regenerative farm. And it's the same way with light. Yes, there are great studies about light and about red light and infrared light, but bear in mind, you're not even getting full spectrum red light or even full spectrum infrared light. You're getting a tiny fraction, a spike, a narrow spike. And essentially, over the long run, we could even argue that we haven't evolved to get those narrow spikes of red and infrared. Because throughout evolution, we've been exposed to a very balanced spectrum of light that is composed of polar opposites that are interchanging in balance. And we could also argue that the state of our well-being is dependent on the word balance. And anything in nature is balanced. Anything in nature is really composed of polar opposites interchanging in balance. One part of the spectrum gives itself fully to the other part so that the other parts re-gives itself fully to the first part. Think of the yin and the yang. Think of the day and the night. Think of UV light and infrared light. Those are polar opposites that interchange in balance. And anytime we've been exposed to anything in nature, it comes with the full spectrum of both the yin and the yang. And just like we're starting to realize that being exposed to blue light in isolation from all the other frequencies and continuously bombarding ourselves with this narrow spike at 455 nanometer increases oxidative stress, inflammation, and reactive oxygen species. I think there's no reason why, over the long run, as we continue to replace sunlight with narrow spike red and infrared light, there's no reason why we wouldn't be running into trouble. I mean, I wouldn't ever think that there's anything evil in nature. Blue light is not evil. It's the context under which we are exposing ourselves to blue light and the wrong timing to that exposure that is causing those evil effects. And in the same way, isolating red and infrared and chronically exposing ourselves to it rather than using it safely and wisely in a way that supplements when we need will end up causing similar kind of issues. I don't see why not.
Right. It's funny because I'm a melanoma survivor, so I'm 5 years cancer free. And people are like, I don't understand how you teach people to go out in the sun without sunblock and all these things. And I'm like, well, no, doing what the doctors told me to do, the dermatologist since the age of 12, getting 2 skin checks a year and wearing sunblock and all the things that they told me to do, I somehow still ended up with melanoma at the age of 35. So I got into in this quantum field because it was the only thing that made sense to me. The sun gives life to everything on earth. How could it be the corporate for the disease? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And that's how I found this practice. I was like, man, how could the one thing that gives life take away life? Like, that didn't make sense to me.
Absolutely. Like, whether you believe in God or not, or you may believe in a greater power in the universe or the one or the divine, whatever you call it, but God doesn't make any mistakes, and nature is not a mistake, and there can be no mistakes in nature. The only time we run into issues is when we ourselves disconnect ourselves from the rhythm of nature and alienate ourselves from that balance. Oftentimes,
Yes.
we as humans, we're very different than animals and the vegetable kingdom. And in a sense that we have willpower and we have the power to choose and to think for ourselves and to take actions. Now, as wonderful as it is, it's also a double-edged sword, because when we fail to think with God in a rhythmic, balanced way, and when we fail to extend the balance and the rhythm of the universe into our thinking and into our action, we end up poisoning ourselves because all of our actions are out of balance. And when we create any form of innovation or an environment, the innovation and the environment is an extension of us, and it's not the other way around. And if we ourselves are out of balance, if we ourselves don't know the universal laws that are around us, and we continually extend from ourselves into unbalanced innovations, we end up completely destroying ourselves and essentially the human species. And we are at a very critical time where if we don't realize that the only way that we could survive together as a species is by building the human first. And there's a poet, his name is Edward Markham, I believe. He said, in vain we build the city if we don't build the human first. And those are deep words of wisdom, because in vain we build technology if we don't build the human first. And building the human first is about remembering who we are, the divine essence that we are. Is about remembering the beauty of being of service towards each other, because that's why we exist. I believe that the purpose of our existence is that we can give all of ourselves to each other so that we can re-inspire the other person to re-give from themselves. And that to me is what love means. Love is a balanced giving for an equal re-giving. And as long as we continue to like strain away from that, we ourselves are causing our own alienation and our own sickness and our own illnesses.
I couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I think you just gave me the last question I'm going to ask on every podcast going forward is, what does love mean to you? I love that so much.
Yes.
I love everything you said. I remember doing my first breathwork session and the word remember just kept coming up. And I was like, remember what? I was so confused, but it was as I was going through my spiritual awakening, I was just like, what am I supposed to remember? And to this day, that stood out so clearly to me. And so that kind of got triggered when you were just explaining what love meant to you. And I'm like, yes, we are supposed to remember that we are these divine beings in service. We're here, to be in service to one another and help each other remember the light beings that we truly are. So I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess maybe let's finish up on your 7 steps of harnessing light. I'd love to share that with the audience.
Yes, absolutely. So it's clear that we have a light problem, and we just scratched the surface to the intense negative impact that we experience when we are in the wrong light environment. So you may ask yourself, okay, what's the solution? And through years of trial and error, researching, experimenting, adjusting my own light environment, going to extreme experiences of living up north with indigenous people and seeing how they live, I can confidently say that it is possible to thrive in a world of artificial light. It is possible to thrive in a world that is almost designed to disrupt us, but it requires living with intention. So this is exactly why I thought about the 7 steps. I was observing myself, like, what is it that I do on a day-to-day basis? And what is it that shifted? And I noticed there's these 7 steps that go with me wherever I go. And these steps are phenomenal because anytime I share them with anybody, whether in big conferences or at a small dinner with friends, I often get the feedback of how after implementing those 7 steps, people feel like, they start sleeping better, they have more energy, they start focusing more, they feel more motivated. And the most phenomenal part about those steps is that they're almost for free. They require one thing from you: your attention and your determination to do them every single day. And I think the fascinating part about them is after you practice those steps for, say, 3 weeks, you no longer need to hear somebody like me on the podcast convincing you to do those 7 steps, because you will be like so convinced, so much so that you will find yourself sharing those 7 steps with other people. Step number 1, waking up and going outside and watching the sunrise. Whether the sun is there or not, whether it's hiding behind a cloud, it doesn't matter. If the sun is not hiding behind a cloud, it's a beautiful day, getting at least 20 minutes of that morning sunlight. If it's cloudy, 30 to 35 minutes. If it's overcast, extend that time, 45 minutes to an hour. And definitely avoid wearing sunglasses and let that natural light reach your eyes. And for maximum benefit, I'd recommend going barefoot. Now, I'll share a little bit more why barefoot. But this early morning sunlight literally triggers your cortisol and adrenaline. It makes you feel alert, energized, and ready for the day. I describe it as the most effective cup of coffee without the negative aspects of coffee. And also, morning sunlight is what clears the residual melatonin that is still in your body from the night before, and that literally freshen your brain and remove any drowsiness that you may be feeling first thing in the morning. Also, it increases ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and that will prime your appetite for a really good breakfast when your pancreas is at peak insulin efficiency and your stomach is at its peak digestive efficiency. So I want to share also with that some ideas, because many people say to, oh my God, I don't have the time to get morning sunlight. I can't do it. There's so many things on my plate. So I thought about like simple ways that people could get morning sunlight. So essentially making this part of your routine by exercising outside. I literally, in the past, I used to want to go to the gym to exercise. It was a non-negotiable for me. Today, I shifted my mindset and I start adopting and learning different sports that allow me to exercise outside. Beside all the benefits that I'm getting from sunlight, what I noticed is that the action of learning a sport and seeing yourself evolve and learn and become better and better every day in itself is such a dopamine booster. And the only difference is it's not like the dopamine boost that you get from your phone when you're scrolling. That raises your dopamine and crashes it way below baseline. But when you are learning a sport, when you are feeling purposeful, when you are seeing yourself improving every day, literally continues to like increase your dopamine in a very sustainable way above baseline, and that gives you a lot of motivation and inspiration, and you will get the benefits of morning sunlight for free. Now, another idea is for families who have kids. I would suggest to, like, instead of driving them all the way to the school, then park your car 10 to 15 minutes away from the school and take a walk with them to school. And in this way, you're getting morning sunlight. They're also getting morning sunlight. And, use that time to have a conversation with them about the sun, about nature, and to transfer that knowledge to them.
I started doing sunrise, and when I first started learning this stuff, and then all of a sudden the kids wanted to come on the front porch with me. And my husband, he wasn't bought in at all. And so he would lay on the couch on his phone. And I think probably about 2 weeks or something into it, he stepped outside to watch the sunrise with us. And it was such a profound moment. I kind of looked at him and I said, "Oh, you're coming outside. This is so awesome. Thanks for joining us." And he goes, "Yeah," he goes, "it was lonely in the house being by myself while you guys were all, watching the sunrise." And what I have to say is this has become such a beautiful ritual for our family, because not only do we, again, we have like the orange blockers on, we go outside first thing, and we spend this like beautiful quiet time as a family. Like nobody's up, there's no one outside, and we come together in prayer as a family, and we talk about, set our intentions for the day. And we have this rule where we read 2 pages a day in this book. It's just become this beautiful practice for us. I always say, like, I don't have that much time left with my children, right? Like studies show like 95% of all the time that you're going to have with your children happen before the age of 18. After that, you have very minimal time that you'll spend with them after that. This is time where we are in nature, we're together as a family, and we're connecting and building that bond with no phones, no distractions, no screens, like no rushing to get out of the house. Like it has become literally the most sacred part of our day.
Wow, that's amazing. And I wish that very soon that there's millions of families who are experiencing this and who are watching the sunrise together, praying together. And what makes a happy, strong, beautiful world? It starts from happy, strong, and beautiful families that multiply into many
Yes.
happy and strong families. And this is literally what make a happy, strong world. And we tend to like forget those things, and we tend to like take those things for granted, and we want to like step out and like make massive changes in the world and find the biggest solution for the greatest problems. But then we forget that like the world is just a multiplication of small little families, and as those small little families unite in love and in balance, then they become strong and happy themselves, and they extend their love and strength and balance and happiness to other families who could be inspired by them. Hopefully many families will inspire by what you shared, and as many families get inspired, this forms the world. So that's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So step number 2, going outside when UVA appear, which is really different from one environment to another and from one season to another. Luckily, there's now different apps that track the timing of when UVA appears. I love the app created by my friend Sarah Kleiner, My Circadian app, and happy to share a link with you also if you want to share it. I'm pretty sure you're aware of it and you already shared it.
Yes. Yeah.
But it will take your geographical location. It will tell you when UVA arrives. So that's a very important period of time to also be outside and get 10-15 minutes of that light. Ideally, it's golden if you're extending your sunrise all the way through to when UVA rises. And if you choose to start exercising outside, you will find that this will naturally happen. If you also choose to start responding to your emails outside, put your laptop outside on the porch and responding to your emails, also this will naturally start happen. So you want to find like smart, logical ways that fit into your schedule and into your lifestyle that allow you to harness the power of those steps without taking away from your time and so on. So UVA is a very important frequency because it activates a photoreceptor in the eye called neuropsin, which absorbs UVA, and it transforms the light energy into different neurotransmitters and hormones that control the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act. And we are what we think and what we act on, literally. So if the quality of the light that is entering our eyes is empowering our thinking and elevating the quality of our action, it's literally transforming our life. So we want to capitalize on this opportunity from nature and build our serotonin, our dopamine, our melatonin. Also, UV activates melanocortin. It's a protein that is composed of 242 amino acids that can become so many different peptides like beta endorphin, the feel-good hormone, alpha MCH, beta MCH, gamma MCH, which regulates your appetite, increase your libido, decrease inflammation, build up your tan, your melanin. And by the way, melanin is the superhero of the story. It turns out that melanin is actually not only anti-inflammatory, but is anti-parasitic. It's also it protects you against molds. There's all these different community of people who continuously do like their parasite cleanses and are obsessed about mold and so on. That's all great, but what if you could build your melanin and become a lot more resilient to all those things? And you can. And that's beside other amazing benefits like nitric oxide production, building your structured water, etc. Now, step number 3, taking sun breaks periodically throughout the days, every 2 to 3 hours, and spending at least 5 minutes outside. Now, I'm a big fan of sun tanning and of building my tan and of my melanin, building my melanin. So if you want to build your melanin, you really need to be aware of your skin type and of your past. So if you're somebody who's been spending all of your time indoors under artificial light, you're very inflamed, you eat a lot of inflammatory foods and like toxic oils, for instance, you cannot just like decide to go and sit in the sun 12 noon and fry yourself. There's a process of gradually exposing yourself to that sun. I will share a resource with you, Oksana, about like a booklet that I've written where I explain a little bit more about what's the best process of gradually easing yourself into sun tanning without hurting yourself. So I'll make sure to share a link so everybody could download it as well. And that will also allow you to increase your vitamin D, which supports your bone, immune health, sense of vitality. Then step number 4, when you are inside and you're exposed to any form of artificial lights, whether it's coming from your phone, from your screen, or from your bulbs that you're using at the house if you're using LED lights, or if you're in an office that uses LED lights, then it's very important to wear the VivaRays daytime harmonizing lenses. And those are not essentially like regular blue blockers. There's the yellow tinted blue blockers, dark yellow, which are designed to block 100% of this inflammatory narrow spike coming from LEDs. The issue with that is while it may eliminate headaches and eye strain, it could also disrupt your circadian biology because you're completely eliminating blue light, and your brain needs to receive blue light during the day to know that it's daytime. There's a deep purpose for blue light. That's why it exists in nature. So the circadian harmonizing lenses that I'm wearing right now, instead of blocking the blue, they harmonize it by decreasing the sharpness of the 455 nanometer frequency and spreading it across the spectrum. So we're getting more green, yellow, orange, and red light, which are frequencies of colors that by design, they come symbiotically with the blue to balance it out. Never in nature we get blue light in isolation.
Can we just cover real quick why the clear blue blockers, or, you know, the blue blockers out there on the market that are clear that everyone's wearing, why those don't work?
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. So the light that you're exposed to, whether it's from your phone, your computer, or from your LED bulbs, they all emit a similar frequency. The blue light in them starts at 430 nanometer, spikes at 455, and goes down. Now, the clear blue light blocking glasses, they block blue-purple light up to 420 nanometer, which is not emitted by LED bulbs and screens. It's literally, I like to use this analogy, it's like trying to strain your quinoa in a pasta strainer. The quinoa will end up passing through the hose because you're using the wrong filter. So that's why the clear blue blockers are a complete waste of money. They're just blocking blue-purple light. And the worst part is, if you're someone who wears prescription glasses, your optometrist will put that blue light tint on your glasses. And now you're outside in the sun, you're blocking blue-purple light, UVA, and UVB, which is absolutely terrible for your glands. And we have a solution for this. I'll mention it at the end. It's called the UV transmitting lenses, specifically for people who wear prescription glasses. So step number 5, watching the sunset, directly or indirectly. There's definitely a quality of spiritual enhancement when you put your intention with the sun versus you're just like on your phone and like having 7 different conversations at the same time and getting that sun. You will still receive the benefits. Your clock will still be reset itself. I find that there's a beautiful quality of like being with sunlight and silence, and like giving all of myself to that. I can't back that up with the study, but I can definitely anecdotally tell you that it creates a massive impact and a different quality in my whole well-being when I do this. So this is a very important period of time to be outside because, again, light is information. And this is information that tells your nervous system that the day is ending.
We are constantly in this fight or flight mode. And I think there's something so magical about watching the sunset. It just kind of gets you in this like parasympathetic mode and it's like rest and digest mode too, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. For me personally, when I'm watching the sunset, I give all of myself to the sun. So we all know that where our attention goes, the energy flows. So I do notice that like when my attention goes to being with the sun, the quality of the energy that I receive from sunlight is amplified, is much greater than if I was just having conversations with friends and on my phone and finishing different tasks. And that's all great. If you had to, finish things, it's gonna definitely be much better to do those things outside while you subconsciously receive that light. But also try from time to time to like put like perhaps a 15-minute alarm clock of sitting and watching this last 15 minutes as the sun is setting in complete silence and observe and notice the beauty around you. It's hard to explain, but I think of it as food for the spirit.
I love that.
So step number 6, when you come back from the sunset, you go back home, you definitely want to make sure that you're not turning on the overhead lights. So turning off all the overhead lights and switching to warmer, softer lights that are close to the floor level. I am a big fan of Himalayan salt lamps, or I actually don't use Himalayan salt lamp. I use this other natural stone from Mexico, which is equivalent to Himalayan salt. However, the light bulb that I put in it is an incandescent light bulb. So that light bulb
Mm.
will matter as well. So make sure that you're putting incandescent light bulbs in it. And in order for this strategy to function properly, you want to have many of those and you want to strategically position them all around the house so that you're not needing to worry about turning on overhead lightings. Step number 7, wearing the VivaRays evening lenses after the sunset. So we have something called the 3-in-1 system that allows you to seamlessly switch lenses and put different lenses depending on the time of the day without needing to have many different frames. And specifically the evening lenses, they block 100% of the blue and the highest frequency green up to 520 nanometer so that we could get the exact color temperature of the bonfire at 1700 kelvins, which we all know when we are around a bonfire, we feel calm, we start winding down, yet we have enough energy to dance, cook, socialize with friends. This would be the purpose of the evening lenses. And I would keep those on until 1 hour before bedtime. And I will switch to the nighttime lenses, which block 100% of the blue, 100% of the green as well, and decrease the brightness by 10 times to maximize melatonin production and growth hormone, and making sure that you sleep really deep and well and wake up feeling refreshed and energized. Now, it's worth mentioning that for me personally, if I'm traveling in an airport, say, and it's like 7 p.m. past sunset, I will definitely wear my nighttime lenses because it's extremely bright. If I'm in a mall or in a hotel or at a conference and it's past sunset, I find myself desiring to put the nighttime lenses versus the evening lenses because they're very effective at decreasing the brightness. So the invitation there is be aware of where you are, which environment you are at, and if you ever find yourself after sunset in an extremely bright environment like an airport, then try putting the nighttime lenses instead of the evening.
The lenses that I'm wearing, the ones that are the UV transmitting ones, and that you can also put the daylight harmonizing ones. These are the 3-in-1s also. When I'm outside and walking, but I still need to see, I just wear the clear ones, right? And then when I'm on technology, I'm wearing the yellow harmonizing ones.
Absolutely. Great point. Thanks for the reminder. So I'll summarize the 7 steps and I'll cover this. So just a summary of the 7 steps. Step 1, watching the sunrise first. Step number 2, getting UVA light about an hour after sunrise. Step number 3, getting sun breaks and exposing yourself to UVB periodically throughout the day, ideally building your tan. Step number 4, when you are indoors during the day exposed to artificial light, wear the VivaRays daytime lenses. Step number 5, around sunset, be outside and get exposure to that light. Step number 6, turn off overhead lightings. And step number 7, switch to the evening and the nighttime lenses after the sunset. Now, for anybody who wears prescription glasses like yourself, as I mentioned, the 100% of prescription lenses are designed to block 100% of UVA and UVB, and most of them today come with a blue light tint to block blue light.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is extremely terrible because when you are inside, it's doing nothing to the bad blue light. And when you are outside, it's eliminating the good UVA, UVB, and good blue-purple light. So we wanted to solve this issue, and we came up with a system called the 4-in-1 UV transmitting lenses. It's specifically designed for people who wear prescription. The base frame will come in prescription, and it will allow you to absorb 50 to 60% more UVA and UVB and 100% of the blue-purple light, so that when you are outside in the sun and you're doing any activity that requires vision, you don't need to think 2 times about it. You could keep your glasses on, you could be doing whatever you need to do to allow you to see, and you're still absorbing those beneficial frequencies. When you go inside, then you have 3 clips, the daytime, evening, and nighttime, to switch on depending on the time of the day so that you can protect yourself from artificial lighting.
Amazing. And I have to tell you, I don't know if you know, but I have literally been fixing my eyesight and reversing my myopia just by using your VivaRays. So I think when I first started ordering these, must have been like 2 years ago, I was at a -4.5, and now I'm wearing -2.5.
Wow.
The cool thing that I'll tell you guys about these glasses, there's like little screws right here, and this part comes apart, and I can literally just swap in the next lens that I've ordered to move it down, 0.25, and then my eyes get used to that. And then the next month I'll order the next set, and gradually, like, my eyesight has been improving and getting so much better. And I love this solution so much because it's so easy to just buy the new lens and swap it out and continue on my journey rather than having to like go to the doctor every month and get a new prescription and do all these things that are just, they try to up your prescription every time you go instead of, empowering you to correct your vision, which is absolutely possible.
Yes, that's amazing. And it's so fascinating that we continuously hear successful stories of people who've been implementing the 7 steps, wearing the glasses, eliminating the inflammatory artificial light, and exposing themselves to the nourishing sunlight. And it's so great to hear how many people are able to reverse back their eyesight issues and to drop their RX. And literally because of that, because of so many clients have been like dropping their RX, we just lately, I wanted to help them because like it wasn't cost effective for them to continue to buy new frames just because they're improving their vision. So I thought to myself, I really want to actually support people who are improving their vision. And we just came up with a decision that like people who are improving their eyesight and need to lower their RX, they could send us their frame, and then we will change the lens for them and would only charge them for the cost of the lens and then ship it back to them.
That's amazing. Rudy, I am so happy and honored to meet you and have you as a part of our retreat that we have coming up, the Return to Nature 2025 retreat. Rudy is going to be one of the wonderful speakers that we have at this 2-day event in Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. This quantum health circadian retreats on 160 acres at this old rock quarry.
Yes.
Just a magical facility. Like you were saying earlier, like we're going to connect to nature, get away from all that technology, and connect with community. And that's what it's really about. And so I cannot wait to meet you and hug you in person. And I'm just so grateful for your time today. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and your mission. And I'm here to support that as much as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to see you and give you a big hug.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Quantum Lens podcast. I hope this episode brought you insight, inspiration, and a deeper connection to your journey. If you've loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's keep this conversation going. And until next time, keep aligning, expanding, and embrace the magic of who you are.